summer.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
And this is not a huge project. I mean, it's an elevator, apparently. It's an elevator, but it's
An
not.
elevator and maybe an extension on the side.
But not, yeah, an extension out, but there's nothing going up. So it's not as if you're going to expand the space all that much. It's basically going to be the same. Are they doing any interior renovations as part of it?
Other than that, no.
I mean, nothing cosmetic inside the offices or anything? Maybe clean?
Sweep the floor? No, that's it. That's the scope of the work.
You know, it's always drama. This is the first time I have like 47
So parade is track.
and tell me, this is the first time.
I know that he was looking at something a bit grander.
They moved to? Oh, I think that phantom was exorcised quite a while ago. Yeah, this apparently is a bridge too far, so. Oh, God. When there are other train stations that are doing the ADA model, and the local businesses are discomforted, is there any history or precedent or conversation?
Compensation to the businesses for the construction that's going on, basically?
Right, for lack of
Not that I've heard. Did I read something in something maybe you sent or something about some sort of a compensation given to businesses in Manhattan someplace? Or who gave the compensation?
I think that was the exalted MTA, and that was the Second Avenue subway, which politically has a different rates, let's say.
But was the compensation for a lost business or was the compensation for taking?
What the MTA said, the compensation was for, I don't know if this was loss of business or for the use when the MTA went into the business to do testing. So it apparently, they're saying it was pretty marked. So we had, the businesses are stressed.
Right.
So we had
Ready, Walter? Okay. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85 of the New York City Charter, a meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet will take, meeting of the Bronx Borough Board will take place on Monday, January 12th, 2026, starting at 10 a.m., held here at 851 Grand Concourse in room 405A. Happy Monday, welcome, Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. We will start with roll call. And if you just identify yourself when I call your name, if you are here. Community Board 1 Chair, Ms. Martinez. Community Board 2, Mr. Crespo. Community Board 3, Ms. Brown.
Present.
Community Board 4, Ms. Bond. Community Board number 5, Mr. Guzman. Community Board 6, Ms. Capers. Community Board 7, Mr. Acosta. Community Board 8, Ms. Reyes. Community Board 9, Mr. Majunda.
Yes, sir.
Community Board 10, Mr. Russo. Community Board 11, Ms. Rodriguez. Community Board 12, Mr. Mike. Council member, welcome to Council Member Elsie Encarnacioni. I don't see her rep here yet. Council Member Dinowitz. Crespo. Council Member Riley. Welcome to Council Member Adobal from the 13th District. Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Councilmember Feliz.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens. Welcome to Councilmember Justin Sanchez.
Okay, thank you.
Just, and not your name, sorry.
Anthony Orlando.
Nice to see you again. and Councilmember Farias. Okay. We have 2 items on the agenda today. First item is the Bronx Solid Waste Advisory Board, SWAB, which will give us a presentation on the Department of Sanitation's is it the containerization or the general information on the SWAB and the work that they are doing. And the second presentation, which we'll actually hear first, is from the New York Blood Center, and a presentation by Yadira Navarro, the Director of Community and Stakeholder Relations. So since our first presenter is not here, she was stuck in traffic, Yadira, you want to come? And actually, you want to come here so that you can...
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Again, my name is Yadira Navarro. I'm Director of Community and Stakeholder Relations for New York Blood Center, and it is a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you so much to the Bronx Borough President, to Persephone, to Tom, and the entire Bronx Borough President team. I'm here to share a little bit of information about who we are as New York Blood Center, the work that we do in the Bronx, and the incredible need that we have where everyone here can be a part of supporting. If we go to the next slide. I am a part of New York Blood Center. New York Blood Center is one of the nation's largest not-for-profit community-based blood centers, frankly, not just domestically, but internationally as well. We deliver life-saving blood products, services to more than 400 hospitals across our entire footprint. This division alone, because we are part of New York Blood Center Enterprises, so New York Blood Center, which is one of the divisions, provides more than 500,000 blood products to more than 150. Actually, it's probably closer to 200 hospitals within our network. We are a part of a greater enterprise, if we go to the next slide, which is New York Blood Center Enterprises. This is our entire footprint, serving more than 75 million people. We have 8 divisions that fall under our enterprise, as well as a world-renowned research institute, and that's the Lindsay F. Kimball Research Institute, as well as other areas of focus, everything with a humanitarian impact. If we go to the next slide, outside of blood collection, oftentimes you'll hear us refer to having a healthy, ample, and diverse blood supply. And diversity for us is not just a statistical point. There really is a science behind it. If someone here, God forbid, was in a traumatic accident, you likely would get either an O positive or negative, or your blood type, and be on your way to recovery. But for those that are chronically ill and need chronic transfusions, they need blood that's more closely matched to their genetic makeup. So it's really important that we have representation in the blood supply so that we can meet patient needs. We are very fortunate to have had the first rare blood inventory and now the largest rare blood inventory, but also through our research institute, we're fortunate to have the matchmakers, for lack of a better term, that can identify those genetic antigens, right, within the blood. Because of that, we oftentimes will get samples from different institutions across the country saying they can't really figure out what exactly that patient needs. They send us the samples. Our researchers will determine what exactly that makeup is, and through our rare blood inventory, we're able to provide it. So it really is a wonderful opportunity, especially with the diversity that we have here in New York City and the Bronx, that we can provide help to our local patients, but also diverse patients across the country. That uniquely sets us up to be a leader in sickle cell disease research and support. So we not only are able to provide these patients the genetically matched units that they need, but also stem cell products, as well as advocacy. We've provided testimony several times to the New York City Council to help bills move forward and be approved for the sickle cell community in relation to better data in schools and just better access to funds. If we go to the next slide. Currently, it's January. It's National Blood Donor Month. It is our awareness month to let people know we're so very grateful. Has anyone here ever donated blood? Thank you so much. If you have, you also know that we contact you quite often, and that's because we don't really have enough donors to meet the needs. So it's thanks to you guys that we're able to meet those needs. So this is a month where we thank you and we extend our appreciation, but also it's the perfect time to raise awareness and generate support, to let people know that this is an important civic duty. And with January being such a difficult time of year, it's the perfect time to garner that awareness. If we go to the next slide, this is a little bit of information on our blood donor statistics. So this actually follows the national trend. This is New York City data. You'll see it broken down by ethnic makeup, but you'll see we had a slight decline prior to the pandemic, and then in 2020 it came down. We've had a very slow and steady recovery, and if you see, the 2025 bar does not yet match 2019. So we're still doing our best to make sure that we can meet those prior levels. We're still down about 25% of community drives. We're still down about 33% for first-time donors. So, the pandemic changed so many industries. Ours was no exception, but this is something that our patients really need. So we continue to get the word out. We have also been investing in different donor centers, so we'll get to that in a second, but Manhattan, since the pandemic, has a new donor center on West 35th Street. We have now one in Forest Hills, Queens, and we'll speak about one special coming to our area in a moment. If we go to the next slide, this is specifically to the Bronx. So we gave a little bit of additional information. This goes back to 2012. But you see, back in 2012, we were collecting about 16,000 donations across the Bronx. And unfortunately, we've had a steady decline with an extreme dip for the pandemic, which is absolutely understandable. For the pandemic, we would have such an extreme drop. And very slowly and steadily, we've been making a recovery. I don't know if I introduced my colleague who's here with me as well, Elizabeth Hernandez in the back. Elizabeth is an expert for the Bronx. We have a project that she lovingly calls the Bronx Project. And, it's a special focused effort at New York Blood Center to make sure that we're recovering donor groups and donations across the Bronx. But there are several reasons. It could be that life has changed. We also, we know work schedule have changed. People now work remote. Schools are a little more guarded on who they allow to come into their location. So it's an ongoing process to get back in. But you'll see that nice little increase, a great incline from 2024 to 2025. That's a shout out to Liz and her team for really putting that effort together. But we want to make sure that we're in the right spaces so that we can continue to collect blood. If we go to the next slide, and this is very important, we try to save for every space that we work in. We want to collect as much as we distribute. So if we're going by county, the bar in red is what we collect. The bar in blue is what we distribute, just to Bronx hospitals. So there is a huge discrepancy between the two. We will always meet the needs, so it's not a matter of we don't have enough blood for Bronx hospitals. That absolutely will happen, and we have the advantage of our enterprise. So that will always be the case. But there's room to grow. We absolutely can change these numbers and make sure that we're collecting more to meet the needs. Ironically, you think of New York City with such a large population, and it has been the case really as long as I've worked for New York Blood Center, 20 years, that New York City doesn't collect enough to meet the needs of our own hospitals. I'll also add the caveat, we also have some of the best hospitals in the country. So we do have some medical tourism, which happens, so that's a part of it as well. But it's something that we want to continue to work on and focus on. So if we go to the next slide, we have a new Bronx Donor Center. So it's something that we're very proud of. We noticed throughout the pandemic, that is one of the reasons why you saw the huge drop. Many of our other boroughs and geographies had a brick and mortar location where people could go and feel a little bit safer during the pandemic and donate. The Bronx did not have one. And as a result, we had the very steep drop. We're so grateful to the Borough President's Office. She has been such a wonderful support for this new center and so patient. We were hoping to open this last year, but unfortunately, due to a few issues, including a cyber incident that we experienced last year, our plans have been delayed. But our hope is by end of February, latest early March, this center will be opened. It'll be in the BronxNet shopping center. And again, it will provide an opportunity for people to have a location to come to and not only provide whole blood donations, but also platelets and plasma. So for those of you who don't know, there's multiple products a person can donate. A whole blood donation, which is what people generally do at any blood drive. It's just your blood, needle and arm. We take a pint. That actually gets separated into different components. So your red cells would go to someone having surgery, your platelets to a cancer patient, and plasma to a burn victim. With a donor center, we actually have the ability to just collect platelets, or just collect plasma, or just collect those cells separately. So it's a really great opportunity. And also, I want to flag, our centers previously felt a little more sterile, a little more clinical. They're now having a very nice aesthetic where you almost feel like you're in a coffee house. It's welcoming, it's inviting, and it's a comfortable experience. So if you haven't, I would ask you to come once we're open. And we'll keep you all abreast to when that does open. We want to give a special shout out. You know, the only way we can do this work is through word of mouth and through folks sort of sharing beyond. As we mentioned earlier, we can contact our own donors, and we do so quite frequently. But really getting other partners involved to expand, to amplify that message to their constituents, to their networks, really helps us go such a long way. The borough president has been absolutely available to everything we need, so we're so grateful for that. The photo on the left, we did a special childhood cancer initiative back in 2023. She recorded a wonderful video. She's done multiple media interviews for us, and she's hosted blood drives here at Borough Hall as well. And again, you'll see some social media postings. So it just, her support has gone such a long way in really putting leadership, you know, to the test there. Our next slide. Ways that you can support and just ways our champions support in general is exactly what we're doing here. Just having an opportunity to come to leadership meetings, to share who we are as an organization, to share what our needs are. You know, when it comes to what area we work in every market segment. Wherever there's an available eligible donor, we can be there. So if there are opportunities to present to folks in the education sector, to superintendents, to school contacts, that would be great. Faith-based, hospital, public service, we would love to connect with you on that. When our donor center opens in the Bronx, again, we would love to extend an invitation to everyone. But again, promoting and encouraging and allowing people to know that it is there and encouraging them to participate would go a very long way. And if there are opportunities to recognize or provide incentives, recognition goes such a long way for us. We, you know, as a not-for-profit are limited sometimes on what we can provide, but we can always say thank you. And there are so many wonderful champions that we would love to recognize. So if you know of anyone that really, you know, deserves some extra praise, we'd love to recognize that. But also if you have connections to incentives or organizations that can help us provide incentives, a small nominal value gift to donors, that also goes a long way as well. So we would love that. If we go to, I believe it's almost the last slide. One of the reasons the timing of this meeting is so perfect, we are currently in a blood emergency. And what that means is a healthy blood supply is about a 7-day blood supply, meaning 7 days worth of units on the shelves. We haven't seen numbers like that, frankly, in years. We probably live in the 3 to 5 day mark. When we're in emergency, it's a 1 to 2 day supply. So we can meet the needs, but we do sort of cut back on how many units we give the hospitals. And if, God forbid, there were a big emergency that required more blood, we may not be able to provide that. This year, one of the challenges was, you know, at the end of every year, it's always a challenge. The holidays are, I don't want to use the word distraction because we're all very excited to celebrate the holidays and be there, but no one's thinking to donate blood, right? So it's a little bit of a distraction to our effort. But this December, January, we had winter weather that affected us. We also had record seasonal illness. I had a cold during the holidays. If you didn't, I'm sure you knew somebody who had the flu, COVID, a cold, or something, so that sets us back as well. And then again, not just the holidays, but where the holidays fell this year, they fell on our most popular blood drive days, Wednesday and Thursday. So as a result of that, we definitely saw a huge decline in donations. For that time frame, it's about a 40% drop, more than 10,000 donations. So if you see emergency messaging online or, you know, in advertising, that's really the reason why. So if you go to the next slide. So this is pretty much the end. There are several ways to help. Of course, if you personally can donate blood, that goes a very long way. We would encourage you to do that. You're more than welcome to scan that first QR code and make an appointment. If you know of somebody who can host a blood drive, again, instead of that one donation, now you're able to make multiple. Our team provides absolutely everything for a blood drive. What we really need is a space and the willingness to help promote. But we provide hard copy materials, digital materials, all of the equipment that comes associated with it. And for those of you who haven't donated, it's a 4-step process where you fill out an electronic form, you sit down with our phlebotomist for a mini physical, you donate for a few minutes, and then you get some refreshments. And that's absolutely a part of the process. We want our donors to leave rehydrated with some snacks. Some people come just for that, and that's perfectly fine as well. But, you know, we provide everything possible for that. So host a drive. And finally, if you go to the last QR code, you'll see our social media links. So feel free to simply just reshare. It can be as simple as that. Resharing our messaging goes such a long way. So the final slide, you can look at your leisure, are just some stats on blood donations. You know, statistically, 1 in 3 people will need blood in their lifetime. 1 in 7 people in the hospital need blood. It really goes such a long way, and it's 45 minutes to an hour, and you're literally saving lives. So again, we're so grateful for the Bronx Borough President's support, but everyone here who's a donor or who's interested, you know, we're happy to support however we can, and you're literally making a difference in the community. So I will pause here. If there are any questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you, Yadira. And the Borough President, as you mentioned, is very thrilled about the new center opening in Throgs Neck. I know part of the conversation began at a community board, actually, at Community Board 11, where we were asked by members to reach out to the New York Blood Center about a site in the Bronx, and over years, because it has taken some time to find space that is acceptable to the blood center, and we're very happy. It's in a central location where people can drive, and there is transportation to it as well. So we look forward to that, and I know the Borough President is excited to be there when it does open. First, before we go to questions, I just want to welcome, excuse me, Ms. Bond from Community Board 4. You can join us at the table, Ms. Bond. Mr. Guzman, the Chair of Community Board number 5, and the representative from Councilmember Riley's office. So we thank you all again, once again, for being here. Are there any questions for Yadira and the New York Blood Center? We will share the presentation with all of you, so you can share it with your organizations and hopefully invite them to have a blood collection in your districts. Mohammed?
Any phone number to call you to get set up the blood drive?
Yeah. I'll give you my card. I think that would be
Yeah.
easier.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Just the general number, yeah.
Edda, can you just pass her the microphone?
Absolutely. And please know at the end of the presentation, you'll find my and Elizabeth's contact information.
Good morning, thank you for that. I just, do you have any type of flyer stating like what are the criteria to donate blood? Because I can't donate blood, because I was, when I was in my 20s, I received blood, so they said I could never donate blood. So it's different, you know, some people just can't donate. So maybe, do you have a flyer saying like, you know, people that can donate and those that cannot, and the reasons why they may not be able to donate blood, so that if I send this information out, people, you know, are not just wasting their time thinking that they can donate blood and they can't. Is there anything available?
So we're regulated by the FDA, so the criteria does change from time to time. Everyone should have received a flyer, so on it, on the QR code, you'll be able to come to our website, and on the website there is information there.
Okay.
But we're happy to send more direct information as well.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Any other question for Ken?
Questions for me?
Sorry, she just asked if there was an age requirement. So at the bare minimum, it's 16 years old to donate with parental consent. Those that are over the age of 75 need consent from their physician, just saying that they're medically cleared to donate, weigh at least 110 pounds, and have a valid ID. We also encourage people to eat before they come to donate, so if you ever are interested, it's not like a medical exam where you fast, it's the opposite. You want to eat well before you come. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Ken?
Well, okay, no, thank you very much. Before I started taking injectable medications, I donated regularly, and it's fun. Can you talk a little bit about the current state and prognosis of synthetic blood? Like, how viable is that a technology, and how will that affect your services?
So I'm not well versed on that topic. I will say we have heard of synthetic products. Our understanding of it right now is that they don't last long. So it's a very temporary measure, whereas blood donations will survive in your body and allow you to continue to create. Synthetic blood is sort of a temporary hold, which is why, you know, the minimal understanding I have is it's often used in a military context. And again, it's just to make sure that they can hold off until they're able to get to a location for actual treatment. Even when we were talking about sickle cell patients, you know, there are a lot of advances in medicine for sickle cell patients as well, but unfortunately a lot of them are out of access, whether it's for cost or they're just not at the stage to be open for broad use. So as of right now, we're still very reliant on actual human-to-human blood transfusions for many patients.
One last question. One last question.
I'm sorry.
Now that you said that, yeah, because I know like Jehovah Witnesses, they can't take blood, so they would be receiving synthetic blood. That's what they would receive. Because I know a friend of mine, she had an operation, and that was like a big deal. But I don't recall her saying it was synthetic blood. But maybe she did. It was a few years ago. But everything was successful, thank God. But yeah, that's something that I never thought about. Yeah. So they're still doing research on that, as far as.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know for religious beliefs, there are some groups that do not accept blood, and at that point, that would be outside of our control. That would be with the hospital. I don't think they accept any unit synthetic or real, but I wouldn't know for sure.
They did something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay, thank you,
Thank
dear.
you
I
so much
appreciate
for
you
the
for
time.
being here. And I see that Dior is here. Dior, why don't you come up? Dior St. Hilaire is the chair of the Bronx Solid Waste Advisory Board. And Evie, we can bring up her presentation.
Good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
All right. We'll wait for that to happen. My name is Dior St. Hilaire, as Tom stated, and I chair the Solid Waste Advisory Board. So I like to just think that we are the community board of trash. That is how I explain it. And we can just get going once we. All right. So just by a show of hands, who here has ever visited a local community garden? Great. Love it. So we know who we're here with and we're amongst company with. You can go to the next slide. So our initiative, as I mentioned before, we're kind of like a community board of waste and trash. Our initiative right now is to green the Bronx, which is essentially we want to be able to start and build a zero waste center in the Bronx. So I'm going to go through what's happening from the perspective of trash and solid waste management in the city right now at the state level, and then be able to kind of talk about what this means for the Bronx and how we can build on that. Next slide. These are just some of the meeting topics that we've hosted in the past. As you know, solid waste is all encompassing. It is things from electronic waste to medical waste to metal, glass, plastic to paper. There are so many more streams. There's textile. And so what we want to do is be able to inform the local community about, I want to say, alternative ways of handling that waste and getting creative so that it could be a little bit more sustainable. You can go to the next slide. And again, this is just more of the kind of conversations and topics that we've had. So most recently, we had our own hearing to kind of just gauge some responses from local community board members in order to kind of figure out what are your waste and trash concerns so that they may be implemented in our feedback to DSNY around the solid waste management plan that they have created. Next slide. So I want to kind of just get into this a little bit with some of what our goals are, right? Now, you all are here representing community boards. I think there might be some council members representation in the room, but we need to have at least one community board member from each board, right? In order for us to say what are the trash concerns for each community board, that means we need to have a board representative that is there, able to come to our meetings and say, hey, these are the concerns that are being raised that is coming up from community and coming up from our meetings. That has to happen with having a representative. So one of the biggest things I would love to come out of today is for you all to be able to identify which committee, who in your board, who has capacity. That is a big thing. We have had people before that have been with us and kind of been in and out, in and out. I would love to even get excited about how we can get creative with maybe even identifying a young person who may be able to come onto the community board that may be able to represent in this capacity. We are open to, again, being creative with the solutions, but I want to kind of just emphasize that we also want to be able to do tabling events once a month. So if you know that there's an event that may make sense for us to attend, let us know so that we can do some tabling, and we want to be able to rotate it so that we're able to hit each community board. So as I mentioned before, policy is a big deal right now. The solid waste management plan is what is kind of at the top of DSNY's purview right now. And so what we want to do as a SWAB is say, hey, when there is testimony, when there are hearings, we want to be able to make sure that, again, we are representing Bronx interests when we are giving them to City Council. And so being able to, again, come together with local community board members as well as constituents will allow us to be able to do that most successfully and impactfully. Supporting the creation of green jobs. This is really important because as we are moving in the direction of sustainability, circularity, a care economy, it's really, really important that we understand the types of jobs and labors that we want to be able to promote and see, especially ones that promote the health and safety of our workers. The Universal Organics Program, as many of you I'm sure have seen, there are the orange smart bins on the corners that collect your organics from the public. There are the brown bins that collect it curbside. And so this was a big deal for us. This is a really big win. We did a lot of work over like really decades worth, even before I got into this work, of how this was started to get to this point. So this is a big deal, but unfortunately NYCHA is still excluded from this. And so we want to make sure that when we're talking about universal organics, that we are considering NYCHA and what those plans also look like. And again, the alternative waste handling solutions, we have to engage artists, we have to engage artisans. Like the way that I like to say that it's not the waste management industry, but it's the materials management industry. And so really and truly, it's how are we getting creative once a product has reached the end of its life cycle? How do we breathe new life into it? And some of the peoples that hold the creativity for that visioning are our artists. So I think it's a great way to engage them in this industry at this moment. And again, park and waterfront access so that we can be a little bit more mindful. You'll see in the map later where the waste transfer stations are concentrated within the South Bronx. And so what you will find is that we don't have access to our waterfront in comparison to some other places because they're being utilized by waste facilities. Next slide. We can go next. Maybe it's a tech issue. I don't know. No, but which way you wanna go. I'm from the Bronx, so you know we're gonna hit these bars. If I knew what was next, I would start talking, but I actually don't. You want to just do a little manual? Where's that on the computer? Yeah, just hit it on it ain't working with the remote. There we go. All right. So if you understand the way that New York City waste streams go, it is residential, which, you know, DSNY handles. Then you have Department of Education, which also is a public service, right? But then you have your private, which is commercial. And so it's really, really important to understand how the waste is moving, because that just kind of tells you where the policies are informed, where the funding is going. And that's one of the things that we really want to raise up. I'm not going to take too much time on these pieces of legislation at the bottom. There is a relevant link slide at the end that you can go through at your own leisure later. But it's just here so that you understand how policy is intersecting with waste and, you know, how that then shows up in our lived experience. Next slide. Now, can anybody tell me, based on curbside, which stream is missing from this? So this tells you and it shows you what happens with our waste once it leaves the curb. Some of us know, some of us don't know, right? Some of it goes to waste transfer stations. Some of them go to MRF facilities, which are material recovery facilities. Some of them end up in landfill. Some of it lands up in incinerators. It gets shipped out. We have waste export here. It gets shipped out by barge and rail and truck. So it's really important that we get creative on how we are reducing our waste impact, but also building the infrastructure to be able to handle it locally. So does anybody know what's missing from this curbside stream? You better say that! Compost, yes. The organic stream is missing from this. This is old or something that Pratt did, but I thought it was a really good way to kind of demonstrate what that stream was. So I just wanted to just highlight that because that is something that is new now, a new law that has been passed thanks to our council members. Sandy Nurse really championed a lot of that. And you can go to the next slide. Any questions at this point? No? Okay, just doing a light temperature check. All right, no? All right, we can go. Beautiful. So I'm not gonna, this is dense. Again, this is meant for you all to be able to look at later, but it's important that we understand what is happening with the solid waste management plan. It used to be a 20-year plan. It is now 10. And so right now what is happening is that DSNY has to now interpret what the plan is at the state level and then create one that applies to the city. We have to get approved by the city and then they have to submit it to DEC and then DEC has to approve it. So there's a whole process. But what's happening is that we want to make make sure that our voices don't get lost in the process and our concerns don't get lost in the process, because this is something that is going to be on record for the next 10 years. So we want to make sure that we are telling them everything that they need to hear as it relates to the Bronx. And so one of the things I want to point out is the waste characterization study is basically a document that allows you to be able to see what's happening with the trash in New York City. I like this document, this graph. It's an older one from the older characterization study from 2017. But why I like it is because you're able to see what is happening in our waste streams, right? With like it being multiple, about a third of organics and things that are recyclable. And as you see, about 75% can actually be captured. And so we got to think about what's happening with residential, what's happening with construction and demolition, what's happening with the organics. These are all parts of the conversation that the solid waste management plan is here to address, but that we also want to think about as well within our borough. Next slide. And I know what the next slide is, because this is important. The environmental justice concern of all that we're talking about. We can talk about solid waste, we can talk about systems change and systems management, but if we're not talking about the restitution of communities that have been harmed, whole families, health disparities as a result of these inequitable race practices, it is environmental racism. That is what it is that we're dealing with. And so, as we're looking to the forward into the future, we have new administration, we have people that are here and excited and ready to do the work and get it done. A lot of folks are on these transition teams. We have to keep environmental justice at the core and at the center, and not forget that it is a large part of this conversation when we're talking about waste, especially in the Bronx. So we cannot have this conversation and separate them from each other. They very much need to be had together. So this is a piece of legislation. It is now Intro 495C that passed. Back in the day, essentially it's a waste cap that says the waste transfer stations have a limit on what they can process daily and annually. How that's being enforced is a whole nother conversation. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is that we send our waste to be burned in Newark. So when we had this zero waste initiative to say it's zero waste, it was zero waste to landfills. And so it's still going to an incinerator is an environmental justice problem, and we should not be sending our trash to harm another community, especially when we are kind of being harmed in our own. And so this is why waste conservation sort of practices and programs are essential to talking about this conversation. Next slide. Now, what is the solid waste management plan, okay? It is basically a document, as I mentioned before, that essentially says, what are we gonna do with our waste in New York City over the next 10 years? What programs do we need to champion? What do we need to lift up? One of the things that DSNY is proud of as a result of the last solid waste management plan, which was in 2006, is the fact that now, as a result, we have a universal organics program, which we did not have at the beginning of the solid waste management plan. So that's one thing to point out. These links you can also look at later. So we can go to the next slide. Now, these are the focus areas. And so here's the reason, one of the things I want to say, and we'll get to a slide that says it, DSNY is not prioritizing the building of new facilities, right? However, with a Bronx Zero Waste Center, we can capture all of these priorities and focus areas from the state in one place and one location. Obviously, this is something that's meant to be able to be transferable to many different areas, many different agencies, and many different industries. However, I think that if you really, really pay attention to the waste reduction and reuse, if you look at the product stewardship and extended producer responsibility, which is a really, really big deal when we're thinking about the redemption centers with the bottles and cans, right? Even down to the organics recycling and the design of the solid waste management plan facilities. I have a vision that maybe we might be able to turn the old waste transfer station into this, you know, but everything is it's open, right? Somebody started with an idea, then we got together and we figured things out. That's how we have what we have now. Next slide. And again, these are some of the focus areas for the solid waste management plan. So one of the reasons why I want to make sure that you're aware of this is because, again, with this 10-year plan, if you think about what are some of the issues and concerns you might be seeing as it relates to trash and waste within your local community board, right, you'll be able to see, like, unfortunately, you'll see the slide that where it says what the swamp isn't. And one of the things they made it really clear is that they don't want to address illegal dumping, which is crazy to me. However, that is one of the things that they have already put on there. And I think that that's our opportunity to then push back, right? Because then they can say that's not what this is, but we can then say, well, that actually is a large part of what happens with solid waste, and it should be a concern. And then that is the sort of testimony that we give back to them to say, this is an area that should be focused and prioritized. One of the reasons why the illegal dumping is not so much in the plan is because that's more of a operations maintenance sort of thing, right? Whereas this plan is meant to be kind of like setting us up, like what are the steps and what are the priorities. So I understand why they don't want to prioritize it, but I think we can get creative on how we still uphold some sort of standard around what that looks like and how that's reflected in the plan. So as I mentioned before, the residential recycling, the organics, C&D is a big deal. The special waste, that's like your textile, your electronics, your paint, your hazardous materials, right? That's why DSNY has those drop-offs every so often, every season. And then education and outreach is important, right? It is so crucial. This recycling education is really, really important, but we'll get to that. Let's do next slide. And these are just some of the requirements, like I mentioned to you before. At the state level, the state is saying, this is what you gotta do. And at the city level, we need to be able to then interpret this and then do something about it. So I think, honestly, where it says that we must include consideration of the following in enforcement, to me, that says that when we're talking about illegal dumping, how does that then line up with enforcement? Because to me, that says the state is saying that's a requirement. So that's part of the reason why it's important that we come together and really analyze these documents collectively so that we can, be able to come together to get what it is that we need as a city and really engage that civic process. Next slide. Again, 10 years, right? DSNY has to report on it. Plans, timelines, this is really just kind of from DSNY's presentation that they gave October of last year. And while they did engage some folks, it was not heavily promoted enough, which is the reason why we requested an extension so that more of you could voice your concerns to be able to have, as it will inform the final plan that they come up with. Next slide. And this is their current timeline, right? It's not realistic, okay? It's not realistic. It's very ambitious. But you know, it's okay. It happens. Next slide. And so what we have done, as I mentioned before, is we've asked them for more time to even give the public comment. And so now that we're at that stage, that has been moved, I want to say to February, if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that. I'll get that to you in writing. But as you can see, the process is kind of moving along now to be able to have them submitted to be able to get this city council submission and approval. So we just had the oversight hearing in December, so it's still fresh. Next slide. Beautiful. And again, this is the process for it. The public comment period is the one that was too short, and that's the one that we're in basically right now. And so this is the time to get this out to your constituents, get this out to your networks, get this out to your folks and let them know to go online and to comment. There's a link. Everything is there, as I mentioned in the relevant link slide. But get it out to people so that they respond. One of the issues that we have is that when you don't engage the civic process, for example, when people don't make those 311 complaints, we cannot complain and don't have a paper trail behind it. So we need to make sure there is visibility around Bronx concerns, and we got to really encourage our constituents to really be a part of engaging that, right? And going online and doing that. So this is the part that we're at now. We're still at the beginning. Then this is all of the steps that it's going to go through in order to get us moving on, you know, for the next couple of years. Next slide. Again, what it's not. They're not saying to propose new infrastructure or specific sites for this plan, but I'm suggesting that as a swab and with all of the things that's happening within the Bronx and all of the just different industries, that we prioritize this, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. These are just some of the other things. The street litter, the dumping, the containerization, the micro hauling, that's essentially picking up the waste locally. And not like with a large garbage truck, but with a vehicle that is either an e-vehicle or a bike. There's a micro hauler's license on the BIC website, the Business Integrity Commission, who regulates commercial waste. So that is where you can find more information about that. But what DSNY is saying is that is not what we're going to be talking about here with this plan, which is a little interesting, which I think, again, more pushback, but we can talk about that. Next slide. All right, no.
When does the public comment period close?
That's what I was telling you. I think like I think February, but I said don't quote me on that. I'm gonna make sure I get you a hardcore date. But there's also a hearing coming up this evening with Manhattan and Brooklyn Swab that's virtual that I will share with you all that you can tap into this evening if you want to get a little bit more detailed into it tonight. They're doing a little bit more of a deep dive. Any other questions? Okay. All right. What does this mean for the Bronx, right? It's all this information. You can go to the next slide. And let's talk about that. So as you can see here, these are where the waste transfer stations are heavily concentrated within the South Bronx. This is an environmental justice concern. We know this to be true. All of the effects, whether it is the quality of life, whether it is the noise pollution, whether it is the poor air quality, whether it is even the what's the word that I'm looking for? Like the diseases that come from the vermin as a result of being around so many waste facilities. Like, this is the reality of people who are living here, and it is a problem. And one of the things that I say with environmental justice is it's restitution. You have to put back what you have taken. And so I believe that the Bronx Zero Waste Center is a way for us to reinvigorate some of these communities and really get excited about what the future of the Bronx can look like, so that what we're not seeing is a bunch of waste facilities, but what we're seeing are materials management facilities. And that's really what Green the Bronx is about. Next slide. I wanted to point this out because a lot of times it's very much like, I think about waste like in our workers, like Houdini, you know, it's like you see it in the day, or like you see it disappears in the night. You don't even know who has taken it. I mean, we know who takes it, but to be in a space where you are so disconnected from your waste, right, and where it actually goes, like there are indigenous practices that lived in a very symbiotic way with nature, which meant that we were responsible for our own waste. And now in modernity, it is a little bit disconnected. And so this kind of just basically lays out for you the kind of flow chart and diagram of how waste moves, of how materials move, and what are the implications of this kind of system that has really affected whole communities in the name of convenience. And so I ask you, what do you think is missing from this diagram just immediately upon looking? And there's no special answer. It really is just what comes up in your spirit. Like, you're like, I don't see that thing over there. What about that? I'm going to answer it for you if you don't answer in like 30 seconds. Don't worry. I ain't going to take too much time. Okay, all right, that's one. It's down there, though. It's right there. You're going to be like, oh, when I say it. Wait. Okay, we ready? The people. The people. This one little lady over here, okay, that's very, very nice. I appreciate what she's doing. All right, she's helping us know she's a part of the process. Where are the people? We talk so much about this conversation about greenhouse gases, environment. The people are really at the core of this work. And so I want us to be reminded that when we're talking about this, when I'm coming with the Bronx Sabotage, this is a mechanism and a tool for us to really reach that communal vibration and of resilience. And so the people is really what is important with a lot of this work that we're doing. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to point out some stats for you and bring it to your attention. Again, this is why the people are important. This is why the Zero Waste Center is important. When you begin to understand these numbers, and I'll be honest, like when I had taken this little workshop and I saw these numbers, I was so frustrated to see how many of our people have to, and you can go to the next slide, but to see how many of our residents have to leave this borough in order to work and get a meaningful job, to be able to take care of their families. All of our brilliance is going to the other boroughs. Recognize that. Recognize that. The people say a lot about the Bronx, but if we could live and work where we live, I promise you a lot of things will look different. And so we have to be able to try to kind of create that industry that's going to allow us to be able to make that happen. So I believe that this is, again, one of the tools and mechanisms that can help us do that. But this broke my heart, especially as somebody who works. I do a little bit of everything, actually. If you know me, you know. But I also work in Brooklyn, right? And so that should tell you, I want to be here, but I also have a child, and I have to be able to, right, make a living. So I think we could figure it out. We could figure out how to build this industry for ourselves so we can keep our brilliance here for our people. Next slide. And it's the same thing as well around education. I think the more that you expose children to these kinds of concepts, I see the Zero Waste Center as a great place for kids to go learn after school programs, hands-on activities, STEM research, art. Like, it really is a place for all. And I think that we have so many different organizations within our borough that could have a spot in there that could really make it a whole experience. Next slide. And this, I'm going to go past this too, but why this is important is the CLCPA. At the state level, this is a law that we need to pass. It's going to actually help us do all of the things that we want to do as far as building the Zero Waste Center, holding the producers responsible for a lot of these products that are kind of being polluted in our environment. This CLCPA is really important, so I want to put it on your radar if it isn't already, and just to know that right now this is something that we need to pass. So New York Renews is the organization that is really putting a lot of energy behind this, so you can tap in with them. Again, it will be on the relevant link slide, but I wanted it to be here so that you could see how these issues all intersect. Next slide. Okay, so the swamp considerations, right? So we talked about the green jobs before, but we want to look at some worker-owned cooperative models, right? We want to look at some cooperatively owned businesses. So again, when you're talking about long-term sustainability, that means that we share the risk as well as we share the reward. And I think that this embeds a sense of pride in what folks are building locally. And again, for reducing harm for the community and the environment. For Bronx business is to prioritize these projects and funding opportunities. I think that there are organizations that engage the local community in a very meaningfully and just way, and we want to be able to encourage those organizations to be able to benefit from how we allocate the funding in the future as it relates to the solid waste management plan. Again, to increase that education, you got to promote that localized cultural knowledge. I think that DSNY can do a lot, but DSNY can do but so much in order to bring people into this kind of consciousness of conservation, as I like to call it. And again, the deconstruction versus demolition. If you look before, there was a large percentage of C&D waste that was on that graph. Now, when we talk about demolition, that means we're just demolishing things and getting rid of it. When we talk about deconstruction, that means that we're getting rid of the pieces and taking it down in a very intentional way so that it could be reused for a future project. There's a big difference there, and I think that is something that we need to be able to also encourage as it relates to the solid waste management plan. And again, these alternative kind of waste handling solutions. There is a space for you all to be able to offer what you also think some of the solid waste management plan considerations should be. I could pause now and let you do that, or we could keep going. You want to keep going? Okay, nobody's burning to tell me anything. Next slide. And again, as I mentioned today, which is why this is so timely, as I mentioned, the Brooklyn and Manhattan swabs, we talked with each other a lot because we should, right, in order to make sure that we're not siloed and in understanding what's happening with our city from different perspectives. And so there's going to be a hearing tonight at 5 o'clock. Again, you can get this. The link is there. We're gonna get into it a whole lot more. I probably will tap into it as well, just so that I can be there and have a presence. But if you really want to engage, especially if you weren't able to come to the hearing that we had in the Bronx, then I would suggest that you attend this one. That's this evening. Next slide. And this is really quickly just to say, what is the purpose of this, right? What is zero waste? What do we care about? It saves energy, it reduces methane, and it stores the carbon in soils. It brings whole communities together. There's so much more benefits to, like I said, like consciousness, like conservation consciousness. But this is just a slide to kind of tell you a little bit more about what some additional benefits are. Next slide. And so, like I said, breaking out of these silos. These are just some of the organizations that we have worked with in many different ways, shapes, or forms. I'm sure that you are familiar with every single last one of them that are on this list. And Transform Don't Trash Coalition actually came up with the People's Solid Waste Management Plan. And so I encourage you to look through that, because it is one that actually centers environmental justice. It's one that looks at what has happened even over the years, right, and makes recommendations about what we should do that's equitable and centers people in thinking about this plan. So we have what DSNY is doing. We have, some EJ aspect of these things. And like I have here is, I believe this Zero Waste Center really is an opportunity for us to be able to merge equity, our culture, and the innovation that lies in just building out a reuse. I think just this idea of like the Bronx is burning, and you look at the Bronx's history and you see all that we are a resilient people. And that can be reflected in many different things. And as somebody who has Caribbean descent, but who was born here, I am very proud of my borough, and you cannot talk bad about the Bronx in front of me. I'm not the person to do it, right? So I want to say that we have an opportunity with this center to have some sort of like made in the Bronx store. And I think that would be great to be able to, again, increase our industry and our access and really, pushing out the Bronx to the world. Next slide. As I mentioned, these are the relevant links. I've just taken the time to sort them so that you can just see them from the different perspectives as they come to us. It's really straightforward. I'm not going to bore you with that. You can click on that later and read it. Next slide. And I want to just thank y'all for taking the time to just listen and engage and be present for this. Again, this is a recruitment time. We just got our BP. Shout out to Vanessa Gibson, who also has been very supportive, reelected. Let's make this a legacy project. Let's really put our efforts behind it. I am ready to pull all of the networks and resources and things that we can in order to make this a reality, but we need the participation and involvement of people in order to make it happen. And the last thing I want to say is that we need to localize this idea of prosperity. We don't have to leave in order for it to be better. It can be better because of what we do today and what we do here and what we do now. So you can reach me at this email, and yeah, I look forward to staying connected with you all.
Thank you, Judy.
Yes. I asked if y'all had questions, so I'm assuming, yeah.
You will be forwarding this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very,
It's very important, as you all mentioned, about having a representative from each of the community boards on the SWAB in order to bring back the information from your communities to the SWAB.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, exactly. Just also a note that the borough president did submit testimony at that hearing in December, which we will share with all of you as well. And we will continue to work with the SWAB, obviously, to work on their goals and the idea of the zero waste facility, as well to work with our policy staff and our operations staff regarding that. Ken?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. One of the things that I think is potentially very exciting is how can we tap into and expand the youth's coffee next time. Okay. The youth's initiative and creativity around this issue. There was a street fair we had in Community Board 5 a number of years ago, and there was a young man there that was trying to build building bricks out of plastic waste.
okay, yes.
So how can we have contests and really tap into the youth's initiative, creativity, and excitement at the household level?
I agree. Is that a question?
Oh,
That felt like a really good excitement comment of, yeah, yes.
yeah. So is there money available for contests?
Yeah, so this is the reason why there's a thing called the Environmental Protection Fund at the state level, and then there's also Executive Order 32. So there are some, and then I believe that there's a workforce development grant that might be closing soon from DEC. So there are many different financial streams, whether it be public or private. It's just getting folks that we can begin to organize, and then we can kind of leverage our resources. Because I have a very vast network, right? And then access to the information. So whether it's coming from the state level, city level, whether it's discretionary funding, whether it's working with a local nonprofit, it's just a matter of devising a plan.
Yeah, maybe we can talk offline. The Bronx Foundation is kind of reawoken,
Yeah, beautiful.
if you will. So maybe we can work out some kind of contest or something.
I would love that. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Kim. Ms. Bond?
Yeah, and one of the problems that we have in Community Board 4, and this is one particular area, is 167.
I'm sorry, excuse me, can you just give her the mic, please?
It's at 167th Street, the D line. It's a dumping, and the dumping is basically done by the homeless. And we've had several opportunities to clean that, but we still have the same situation reappearing. So I need to know, your organization, how are you working with homelessness and the people in the street who are also dumping outside of the residents and education?
Yeah, for sure. I would say directly we haven't addressed that. It hasn't been brought up in the way in which you have just now. So I think, because then my inclination is well, did you talk to them? Do we need to provide something for them? Are there any other resources? I know some folks you can, some folks you can't. But I think that some of the initiatives, even with green worker cooperatives, we're trying to figure out what harm reduction looks like in certain areas. So that may be an approach that we can take with that kind of collaborative approach. But it isn't something that we've directly addressed. And so as you're saying it, I think I will begin to think about that more. Sure.
Are there any other questions for Dior? Okay.
All right, y'all.
Thank you very much. And once again, you will get all of this information this afternoon, tomorrow at the latest. Please feel free to share. Please feel free to reach out to Dior for any other information. She's provided a really good presentation that you can share with your waste committees, sanitation committees, wherever this would fall under your in your boards. And it is, I'm sure, possible that if Dior is able to go to community board meetings, she can make a presentation to those that may be interested as well. Okay. Finally, just a couple of quick announcements. There are two here, and then I have a third one. I believe the first is the Martin Luther King Okay, we'll do the coat one first. Okay, so this Thursday, excuse me, this Thursday in our rotunda here is our annual winter coat giveaway. While supplies last, we ask that children be accompanied by adults. This will be beginning at 4 and until 8, or whenever we are out of coats. Second is on Monday, the 19th, is our annual interfaith celebration celebrating Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and that is being held this year in Community Board number 9 at the Fellowship Covenant Church at 720 Castle Hill Avenue, and that begins at 10 a.m. And then lastly, which is not here, but on Sunday, February the 1st, the Borough President will hold her second inaugural. That will be held at the Lehman Center for the Performing Arts. Invitations will be going out shortly with a QR code for response. We obviously would like all of you as chairs of the boards to attend. It does begin at, doors open at 2 o'clock. The event, the ceremonies themselves begin at 3 o'clock, and then there is a reception after the inauguration ceremony. February 1st, 2026, Lehman Center for the Performing Arts. Does any other member have an announcement?
No, I just have a question.
Sure.
On the one and Committee Board 9, Martin Luther King, what is the date?
Monday,
Okay.
January 19th, right? Yes.
January. Okay.
January 19th, Monday
Thank
at
you.
10 o'clock at the church that I mentioned.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions or announcements, this meeting is adjourned. Our next Borough Board meeting is tentatively scheduled for February the 9th. We are waiting for the mayor's preliminary budget to come out, because then we have to have our budget hearing and our budget priorities vote. So that, at this point, is the date of the meeting, dependent on the mayor's preliminary budget. Thank you all very much.
Class dismissed.
district.
Okay, so Carl Hasty and Andrea Stewart Cousins, now that they have a supermajority, they basically tell all the underlings with them, within their party, this is how you're voting on this, and that's it. And there's no second party in New York at the moment. The
No,
Republican
and what
Party
we
has
have-
no voice.
no voice, and we have a really activist Board of Regents. I mean, Lester Young, who's on that slide, he is the chancellor, or was, I think he might have just left. He came in with a full-blown, he wrote it, and we can look it up, but it is all about how white supremacy needs to be recognized and removed, and cultural, embrace of other nationalities that are minorities and have been abused. And he just says the most insane things in this rant. It's shameful, honestly. Coming from someone whose father was a jazz musician in New York, and he has basically only worked in school districts in one particular, area of his particular race. And those schools were never uplifted under his guidance. So how dare he sit there and say that?